Tina Turner, survivor of narcissistic abuse, Part 5. In 1960, Ike Turner wrote A Fool in Love for singer Art Lassiter. Bullock was to sing background with Lassiter's backing vocalists, the Artettes. Lassiter failed to show up for the recording session at Technisonic Studios. Since Turner had already paid for the studio time, Bullock suggested that she sing the lead. He decided to use her to record a demo with the intention of erasing her vocals and adding Lassiter's at a later date. Sense of entitlement. Local St. Louis disc jockey Dave Dixon convinced Turner to send the tape to Juggy Murray, president of R&B label Sue Records. Upon hearing the song, Murray was impressed with Bullock's vocals, later stating that Tina sounded like screaming dirt. It was a funky sound. Murray bought the track and paid Turner a $25,000 advance for the recording and publishing rights. Murray also convinced Turner to make Bullock the star of the show. Turner responded by renaming her Tina because it rhymed with Sheena. However, family and friends still call her Anne. He was inspired by Sheena, Queen of the Jungle, and Nyoka the Jungle Girl to create a stage persona. Turner added his last name and trademarked the name as a form of protection, ownership, objectification, so that if Bullock left him, like his previous singers had, he could replace her with another Tina Turner. Back in 1960, thereafter, for a decade, Tina's life was a blur of fame, performance, abuse, and drug use, all revolving around Ike. On stage, she was energetic, strong, sexy, and earthy. Her low voice commanded attention. Offstage, she was an exhausted mum of 4 boys. Ike had brought 2 sons from a previous relationship. And of course, she was struggling to control her husband's boss's rages, ignition of fury, and trying to meet his demands, sense of entitlement. The extent of the abuse suffered by Tina Turner was extensive. Ike Turner broke her jaw and her ribs, choked her, and sexually assaulted her. All forms of rudimentary manipulation, done on a repeated basis, evidencing a complete absence of emotional empathy. Trapped and hopeless in 1968, she tried to take her own life with an overdose of Valium. Her stomach was pumped at a nearby hospital, and Ike had her back on stage while she was still vomiting. Absence of emotional empathy, sense of entitlement. Years later, Ike would deny the extent of the abuse. Denial, first line of the twin lines of the narcissistic defense, telling a biographer, "Sure, I slapped Tina. We had fights, and there had been times when I punched her without thinking, but I never beat her." Abrogation of responsibility. In 1972, a few things happened that started Tina on a pathway out. She talked back to him for the first time, she wrote. By then she was raising the kids, writing the songs, paying the bills. She also found Buddhism and began chanting a mantra regularly. The more she chanted, the more she noticed her life getting easier, things working out better. In effect, she's found her totem to enable her to deal with what her partner was treating, the way that he was treating her. She was offered an acting role in the rock musical Tommy and filmed a TV special with Anne Margaret. Being on stage gave her time away from Ike, which of course would aid her in the lowering of her emotional thinking, and gave her glimpses of her capabilities as a performer without him. Ike Turner stated on several occasions that he was never officially married to Tina because he was legally married to another woman at the time of their ceremony, sense of entitlement. However, they had a common law marriage and still had to go through a formal divorce. He also stated that her birth name was Martha Neal Bullock, not Anna Mae Bullock. She signed her legal name as Martha Neal Turner on multiple contracts. Tina left her husband and manager, Ike Turner, in 1976 after he repeatedly punched her, lack of emotional empathy, physical violence, while travelling from the Dallas airport to their hotel during their tour. In her book, Tina wrote that she looked at a sleeping Ike just before she fled and thought, "You just beat me for the last time, you sucker." She put on sunglasses to disguise her black eyes and ran across several lanes of traffic on a highway, nearly getting hit by a truck. While she only had 36 cents in her pocket, she convinced the white hotel clerk to give her a room at the Ramada Inn before eventually fleeing to Los Angeles. At a time when abuse survivors were still being called battered wives and their experiences swept under the rug or treated as private matters to be handled at home, Tina Turner was boldly and courageously depicting how horrendous living with abuse was, with her unflinching honesty. Beginning with a 1981 interview in People magazine, Turner revealed her experiences suffering from domestic abuse in her 16-year marriage to Ike. She would go on to detail horrifying allegations of abuse in countless interviews and 2 memoirs, as well as a documentary released in 2021. She reported incidents of Ike burning her with coffee, physical assault, lack of emotional empathy, beating her with shoes and hangers, assertion of control, lack of emotional empathy, physical assault, raping her, lack of boundary recognition, sexual violence, sense of entitlement, lack of emotional empathy, and breaking her jaw and nose before they took the stage and performed together. Part of why Tina went public with the abuse is that the music industry was having a tough time understanding why she was starting her own solo career. I wanted to stop people from thinking that Ike and Tina were so positive, that they were such a great team, Tina recounted in her 2021 HBO documentary. So I thought, if nothing else, at least people know. After her divorce, Turner cleaned houses and would perform her former hits as cabaret acts in Las Vegas until she released her breakout solo album, Private Dancer, in 1984. She won 3 Grammys and her career took off. Meanwhile, she continued to talk about her experience leaving her abusive marriage in blockbuster interviews with Oprah and Gayle King. Her autobiography was turned into a 1993 movie, What's Love Got to Do With It?, starring Angela Bassett. How do we say farewell to a woman who owned her pain and trauma and used it as a means to help change the world, Bassett said in a statement after Turner's death. Tina Turner showed others who lived in fear what a beautiful future, filled with love, compassion and freedom should look like. For black women in Turner's generation, she was a person they could look up to lead them out of their situation, says Alana Brown, Executive Director for the Safe Sisters Circle, which provides culturally specific services to black survivors. She says that there's a cultural stigma against speaking out about abuse and that because of this, some survivors aren't even aware they are being domestically abused and sexually abused at the same time, which of course is a lack of recognition about what the person is that they are dealing with. After Ike Turner's death on December 12, 2007, Turner issued a brief statement through her spokesperson. Tina hasn't had any contact with Ike in more than 30 years. No further comment will be made. Turner's sisters, Aileen, still considered Ike her brother-in-law and attended his funeral. Phil Spector criticised Tina Turner at the funeral. Turner told the Sunday Times in 2018 that as an old person, I have forgiven him, but I would not work with him. He asked for one more tour with me, and I said no, absolutely not. He wasn't someone you could forgive and allow him back in. Thus, Tina Turner, an internationally famous rock star who overcame repeated abuse that she experienced at the hands of a narcissist, albeit once again, nobody is identified as such. It would appear, perhaps, that Tina Turner herself didn't realise what Ike Turner was. It shows, of course, the natural dynamic that takes place. There she was affected by her own emotional thinking, not recognising what she was truly dealing with, that she felt sorry for him, guilty for thinking about leaving him, but ultimately she did escape him as a consequence of suffering years of abuse, physical, psychological, and financial. Tina Turner was a survivor of narcissistic abuse. And you can utilise this material to pass to others who you may suspect find themselves in a similar situation but don't realise what it is that they're dealing with. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.